Still, I am banned from going live on Facebook. It is what it is, I guess. Tonight, I wanted to talk about something maybe a little heavy, maybe a little bitter, depends, and then give a couple block drops and see what my best friend and special guest tonight has to say about these comments as well. So, yeah, we about to get into it. Let's see what we gonna get into tonight. Stay tuned, y'all.
Black men are 2.5 times more likely to be killed by cops than white men.
They don't want us to succeed.
How much more do we have to take?
All right. Good evening, everyone. Good morning. However you want to look at it, however you want to take it. But welcome back to the Leon Block. As I said, I have a guest with me tonight. Let's see what he wants to talk about, what he has to say. And I want to start off with an article that I have from USA Today. With unemployment benefits cut off in many states, Americans return to work, right? Critics blamed overly generous unemployment benefits for a labor shortage afflicting businesses and argued that ending the extra assistance would force many Americans back to work. But that didn't happen. States that ended a federal boost to jobless benefits early experienced virtually the same drop in unemployment this summer as states that maintained the extra assistance, according to a new analysis. From June to August, the jobless rate in states that cut off a weekly $300 in federal supplement to state unemployment benefits dipped by 0.25%, compared with a 0.26% drop in states that continued the benefit, according to an analysis of data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics by the Century Foundation, which is a progressive think tank. Last year, the federal government enhanced and expanded unemployment benefits to help Americans weather the economic shock of the COVID-19 pandemic, which shuttered businesses, crippled the leisure and transportation industries, and erased 22.4 million jobs. The Federal CARES Act originally gave an additional $600 a month to those receiving unemployment benefits. The supplement was later cut in half, and President Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan, passed in March, gave the benefit boost a September 6th cutoff date. But in the spring, 26 states said they would cut the extra $300 a week in federal assistance before it officially ended, as some employers and Republican lawmakers said the additional money was discouraging people from returning to work. The hypothesis Republican governors and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce offered, that unemployment benefits were what was holding back hiring, has been disproved, at least so far. Stetner, who is a senior fellow at the Century Foundation as well, conducted the data analysis, which reviewed data from 24 states, which intended to end the federal supplement early, but were ordered to continue providing the benefit following legal challenges. So, jobless claims plunged 41.6% in the states that ended the federal supplement early, as compared to a 20.9% decline in states that did not. While those states did see a bigger decline by one metric, ultimately their unemployment rate dipped by nearly the same rate as those that continued the extra benefits throughout the summer. That's because while states that ended the $300 check before September saw their employment rates rise faster than their peers in June, those rates fell then in late July and August. The rise of the Delta variant likely complicated the data in states that stopped the supplemental aid. I'm going to drop this in the comments. So you ready, Jimmy?
You're back on the beat. Purchase your track.
All right. So the second article here is about 1,000 march in Philly as part of National Day of Support for Reproductive Rights. We were supposed to go to our state capital here in Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, to film an event. Unfortunately, we were not able to attend. And I think it was meant to be that way. From what I'm hearing, a lot of Black folk did not attend. You can just pull that chair up. Yeah. Um, and apparently there was like a call to action to not attend. And you know what? I do completely understand, and I can relate. I can completely relate to this. So I'm going to get into this article real quick because a crowd of about 1,000 turned out Saturday afternoon on Ben Franklin Parkway in Philly for Bands Off Our Bodies March, joining a nationwide day of mobilization in support of women's reproductive rights amid moves by states to limit abortion access. The group Women's March organized the national action. Hundreds of events were scheduled Saturday as a final push before the U.S. Supreme Court reconvenes on Monday. The local march and rally were planned by Kelly Kostelich, a therapist at Jefferson, and Ben Franklin, Benjamin Abella, a physician at Penn Medicine, Though the primary focus of the march was to highlight legal threats to Roe v. Wade, the pair also wanted a call action on another related issue. So what I took away from that already was I'm just judging, but I'm guessing neither one of those people were Black. And that's what I want to get to is the lack of involvement from people of color and why that might be. And so I have a statement from a viewer of the Leon blog who really wanted to give their viewpoint on it, and they're a person of color. And so they said, yeah, let's break down history for y'all. Anytime it comes to have anything to do with abortion rights, prenatal care, Medicare, medical, anything, white women never come to stand with us. But they talk now about how all women, including Black women and other women of color, need to come now more than ever to stand with them and to make sure, because after Texas, that all rights are protected. So now that your body is on the line, because predominantly it's white women who get the abortions per population and statistics. So now that it's your motherfucking issues, and now you want us to stand on the front line, especially Black women. So with that being said, that motherfucking situation that was nationwide, Black women put a call to action, and Black Lives Matter, anybody who stood with it, were not to attend. No woman of color, definitely no Black woman, nobody was to attend. Speaking of this rally, that nationwide action that was called. And they also bring up merchandising, saying, brings up a good point. So she said, so they've been taking our trauma and all the stuff that's been done to us Black women in the last 100 years alone, just stick to the last 100 years, and then they want to make a profit off of it. White women, privileged women, put a call into action and demanded that women of color show up today, and we let them know we weren't fucking having it. We weren't coming. We weren't going to support. We weren't watching anything. We don't give a fuck. That's not our call to action. That was your white call to action. You know what? I completely back that up, and I understand that. Don't get me wrong. A women's call to action is a women's call to action, but let's go back in history to the women's suffrage movement, because Black women had to feel like they were caught in between the civil rights movement and fighting for the rights of all women, but other white women did not include them, and they shunned them and pushed them to the side. I mean, we can go back to God, I did a fucking podcast on it. Lucy Parsons is another one who still stuck out for rights of all, but she had to downplay her color and her racial makeup to be able to speak to the rights of all women. And then there were other women of color that tried to speak to the rights of all women and specifically black women and were shunned. So let's make that clear. It goes all the way back to that. And you have today, Black Lives Matter was founded by black queer women, black women. How much of involvement do they have or had they had in this action? And what do you have to say about that, Jimmy?
Well, what I'm wondering is, for one, like, is there anyone in like the leadership group and the people coming together to start this thing? You know, is there anyone of like, you know, BIPOC representation there? But for two, like when that's like the big thing is like if there's nobody in that group who is representing, they're asking down. And if nobody's in that group, you know, and they're asking down, then they're asking from a point of privilege, and they should come with no expectation of that call to be answered.
What I saw locally here in Pennsylvania was that condescending demeanor, and when people of color tried to share their experiences and how they felt offended, they were talked down to. And that was my observation. I'm not a woman, but I was watching. That was probably a microcosm of what happened in general with this, you know?
Well, that's, yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to expectation. It's now that it could happen to all of us, you especially have to be there. And it's like, yeah, but where were you when it was just us?
Facts. And that's the point that I'm trying to make here. Anytime you want help, you demand that we're there. But when we need help, and we've always needed help, and way more help than you every single fucking waking second, you're never there. So why do you expect us to be there for you? That's fair. That's fair.
For the fans of Lord of the Rings out there, where were white women when the West Fold fell?
Thank you. Talk about it. Like, I'm like I said, again, I'm all for this action. But at the same time, like, if you're gonna do it right and include everybody, but you're not, like, and you proved your lack of loyalty to rights in general by not showing up for black women's rights or black people's rights, people of color's rights. I just find it very insulting, and I do want to know what other people's opinions are on this. So definitely put your comments in the chat and let us know what you think. Oh wow. Oh wow. Wow. I'm sorry guys. I'm looking here at the new stories that's out, and it's a lot of weird stuff going on. Let me just read a couple of these headlines. Hot girls only. Miley Cyrus crashes Megan Thee Stallion's ACL set. Really? That's what I'm saying about like white woman privilege right there. For real. What makes you think you could just crash Meg Thee Stallion's shit? Like, Miley, I can't fucking stand you. For real.
Well, not only that, but like a person who's like large amount of their fame as an adult came from like appropriation of twerking.
Facts.
Like, I mean, I don't know what the story is. Maybe we should read the story, but like, I don't see that being in any way a good thing. Like, Megan Thee Stallion has her own spotlight for a reason. Unless she was invited.
I'm sure she probably wasn't. I don't know. Maybe, well, yeah, she probably was invited. But like, yeah, let's get into this article. It's from vulture.com. It's officially October, which means the beginning of Hot Girl Fall. During Megan Thee Stallion's Austin City Limits performance this weekend, Miley Cyrus made an appearance during a twerking competition. Cyrus ran up on the stage and made an appearance Sorry about this. Miley Cyrus made an appearance during a twerking competition. Cyrus ran on stage and started dancing, with Megan cheering her on and hugging her shortly after. Cyrus also had a performance of her own at the festival, playing a mix of her Disney Channel hits alongside her classic rock covers. Megan recently released a remix with BTS for their song Butter after she filed an emergency temporary restraining order against her label to release the track. The Austin City Limits Festival began October 1st and continues throughout Sunday. And there's a whole bunch of other artists there performing. So it sounds like it was all good. I love Meg Thee Stallion.
It does
That's
sound
my
like
girl.
Miley Cyrus doing the thing that Miley Cyrus does, though.
Yes, and it doesn't take away from the point that I was trying to prove. Like, what makes you think you could just run up on somebody else's set like that? If she ran up on Miley's, I don't know, it would have been. I don't know if it would have been received the same way. I'm just saying, y'all. But Will Smith reveals why he and Jada aren't monogamous. Libya's migrant roundup reaches 4,000 amid major crackdown. Trump sued her. She won. That's interesting. Lancaster man arrested for assault after victim found covered in blood, police say. Wowza. Okay, so yeah, here in Lancaster City, there's always a bunch of different things going on, crazy shit, but that's no different than anywhere else in the country, to be honest. So I'm not even going to get into that. But I just really wanted to talk about a couple of headlines going on real quick. Is there anything you wanted to touch on and get into about the Bands Off Our Bodies event, or you were having a whole bunch of stuff to say about white women privilege earlier,
Well, because the
and missing
the
white girl
thematic
syndrome,
of
and
the with like the concept with the Bands Off Our Bodies in PA, they wanted to do a Handmaid's Tale theme.
yes,
Or Handmaid's Tale.
Right,
I don't
yes,
know
yes.
the name of the thing.
me either. I don't give a fuck.
Who does? But
No, I just wanted to hear your vibe. You're good.
Okay. But so with that, like, if people don't know, like, I haven't read into it. I know, like, my mom's watched the show, but like, basically the narrative starts off with a like post-fascist society in which like white women are being subjected to all the tortures that like historically have been reserved for black, indigenous, and otherwise women of color, and the black, indigenous, and otherwise women of color are either expatriated or exterminated. You don't see them. You kind of have to make your assumptions for yourself.
That it's supposed to be black people and white and brown people and indigenous people that are actually the characters, but they're using white people instead. Is that I'm getting that right?
And just like vanishing the black, indigenous, and otherwise.
So it's just supposed to be assumed that it's people of color, but they're using white people instead, right?
No, it's not even that. It's more that the stuff that's happening to them is historically like associated with tortures that have happened to black, indigenous, otherwise people of color, but they're not there in the narrative because they're already either gone or dead, because the fascists have already won that far.
Okay.
Which is like, to me, like putting on those like costumes is saying like, we needed to get at least this far for us to give a shit.
Yeah, that's
like
very,
by the time you get that far,
disturbing.
You're not going to have any help.
That's disturbing and it's insulting. That says a lot, but that's also the way that our mainstream media gets a lot of subliminal things in.
Well, and that's the thing is with like a movement like this, particularly like, it's a reactionary because we're reacting against, regression. Because things in the abortion debate are moving backwards right now. So like any protest in, progress is not progressive. It's reactionary against the regression.
That's facts.
So there's a fearful turn now, and now you see the people who are fearful showing up.
Yes.
The people who are proactive are the people who are going to be there regardless.
Right.
The people who it's always going to impact regardless are going to be there regardless. So that's why the more vulnerable peoples are going to be there regardless, because it's going to impact them regardless. When that fear expands, then you see the white women.
That is a great explanation.
So, like, the movements that you're seeing now are propped up by people who don't have the experience, who don't have the tactical education, who are basically committing tactical suicide by demanding things of people that they have no right to be demanding,
Correctamundo.
especially when they haven't been there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing is, like, you know, these organizations, like, you know, they're run by inexperienced people because, like, if they were experienced and if they had the cred, then, you know, like the Black, Indigenous, and otherwise women of color in the region would be rushing to help them because they know these people are real, they're doing something good, they're not asking out of unrealistic expectations.
Mm-hmm.
But this one didn't pass the vibe check. It didn't pass the sniff test, and, you know, Black women explicitly did not show up.
Missing white woman syndrome. Media obsess over some cases as Black, brown, and indigenous women are ignored. So wall-to-wall coverage of the case of Gabby Petito, a 22-year-old white woman and blogger who went missing while traveling with her fiance and whose remains were found in a national park in Wyoming, has renewed attention on what some call missing white woman syndrome. The media's inordate focus on white female victims and the disparity of coverage for women of color. We host a roundtable discussion. This is from the Democracy Now! Website, and it's a podcast with a executive producer, Amara Kofer. She hosts the podcast called Black Girl Gone. And Mary Catherine Nagel, which is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and a lawyer focused on tribal sovereignty. And also Melissa Jeltsin, who's a freelance reporter who covers violence against women. And they say there's an underrepresentation of Black women, women of color in these stories. And there's a whole interview with them that you definitely want to check out. Again, and I always talk about this, Democracy Now! Does really awesome fucking articles and they do really great work. So I'm going to break down this article when I get a chance and find some good pieces from it and then post that to the Leon Block Facebook page so you can check it out whenever you get a chance at the Leon Block IMG. But this is not surprising.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. For the past 2 weeks, much of the media coverage in the United States has offered wall-to-wall coverage of the case of Gabby Petito. She's a 22-year-old young white woman who went missing while she was traveling across the country with her fiance, Brian Laundrie, documenting their trip on YouTube. She's been 2 weeks before she disappeared, her partner was seen hitting her on the street in Moab, Utah. This is a clip from a 911 call of someone who saw this happen.
Hi, I'm calling. I'm right on the corner of Main Street by Moonflower, and we're driving by, and I'd like to report a domestic dispute of Florida with a white van, Florida license plate, white land, gentleman, 5'6" beard.
I don't understand why they talk about the whole domestic violence thing and just breaking it down. Y'all really are trying hard to just drown out Black and brown voices. Again, I've been talking about Barry Washington for a while now. Well, it seems like a while. It seems like forever, but really it's only been like not even 48 hours fully. That happened on September 19th. This story had already broken. They were inundating the media with this motherfucking story about their domestic violence issues. Who the fuck cares? Everybody has not everybody, but all races and all demographics of people have domestic violence issues. And it happens. It's prevalent in every culture and every facet of demographics of life. Why are we focusing on this one? Why are we focusing on these people? Because they're white. They have privilege. They don't want to talk about anything else. The media doesn't want to talk about anything else. They will find the least salacious story to go off of, the driest story when there's tons of other things going the fuck on in the world. It just boggles my mind.
I will ask the question, though, of why domestic violence is the least salacious story. Where, like, I mean, let's not act like this was a mystery. Let's not act like this was a surprise. There wasn't much doubt that the boyfriend did it, and the fact that there are reports of abuse are, like, frankly unsurprising. And domestic violence is the strongest indicator for, future violence. So the fact that it escalated into a murder is, again, unsurprising. Everything about this case is unsurprising.
For real.
And the media response is also unsurprising. It's America in a headline. And it's unfortunate, but the thing is, like, it's drowning out, pretty much everything else, everyone else. And that's the thing is, like, we
That's
see a
the point.
lot of news companies talking about, a lot of like print talking about the the conversation about missing and murdered Indigenous girls, women, and Two-Spirit. A lot of people talking about the conversation about missing and murdered Black girls, women, and non-binary people, but they're not posting the stories of those people who are going missing still.
And that's the problem.
I'm only seeing it on Facebook. I'm not seeing it on the news. That attention is being brought independently. Where it's like, as much as they talk about having that conversation, they're still not directing their attention towards those people who are missing. So that conversation is empty until they actually do something. And that means faces on the screen.
And you know what? History proves to me that won't happen from them. And this is why I work so hard to bring as much voices and awareness to these issues as possible. The more that we stand up with a camera and a microphone and talk about the things that we're experiencing, and we see other people experiencing and do what we can to drown out that whitewashing of history, at least we're rising up and we're trying to fight fire with fire. And I think that honestly, that's necessary. In fact, we have to, we must. That's my thought.
This is one I would say, like, put it this way, this is not one I expect, to become around on. In terms of, like, when it comes to the privileged people being motivated to act, it's usually when, I'm threatened, when my property is threatened, when my people are threatened, when my children are threatened. When it comes down to missing women, missing children, their missing women and children are never going to be Black or brown. So they're never going to,
because they don't associate with it, right? They can't.
It's just never going to, like, you can't expect those people to have the sympathy. The change is not going to come from them. And the fact is, they should not be allowed to have the power to make decisions over who
that
gets
part
treated with the attention.
But here we are with the whole Texas abortion situation.
There's no compromise on the matter. It has to be overdone. We have to beat them. We have to win.
It just brings me back to the whole bands up for our bodies thing, because they really tried so hard to get everybody on board. But where was y'all when we needed y'all? But here we are, still showing up for everybody else. Asian lives. The only ones that show up for us are repeatedly, constantly, consistently are Indigenous lives. I don't even see half of my own people showing up, but I always see Indigenous lives there. I just feel like when you pay attention to that kind of shit, it speaks volumes. You know what I mean? Pay attention. Pay attention to who the fuck shows the fuck up. I pay attention. Do you pay attention? Yeah, anything else you want to say?
I'll be honest, like, living in the area that I do, like, a lot of where I'm going for, like, protest is, like, not in my area. So more what I know is, like, less like who shows up and more who you don't want to show up, like who to distrust. Because I live in a rural conservative area where the situation's already effectively lost in terms of, like, ideological identitarian arguments. Things are quiet, but the penny could drop at any moment, kind of thing. So that's a matter of not as much knowing who's out in public and showing support, but who you can count on in private when shit hits the fan.
Yes.
That's something you need to know in a losing situation, is who you can count on in an emergency. I'm gonna say, but as far as, the closer you are to the city, the closer you are to a potentially winning situation, the closer you are to people who will be out there in the public and in the forefront. And the people you can trust best are the people who are out there regularly and without an ulterior motive.
I completely agree with that. I couldn't agree with that any even more, honestly. Jimmy's always speaking some good shit. They're always posting some really great shit. You can follow them on Facebook. I will post links to their pages if you'd like to check out anything that they post. But we're about to hop off of here and wrap this up. It has been a pleasure having you on, and you will be on again.
Thank you, Pat.
Of course, always. It's always a pleasure. You're a fucking awesome human being. Thank you for being on. And thank you for helping me shed some light on issues concerning Black and brown BIPOC women in general. I don't associate as I don't identify as a woman in any way. But I still felt the need to shed light on this, and I will have some women of color on the show to speak more about it. So don't worry about that, y'all. But I just want to say, be good, be well, love y'all, have a great night. Leon.